3 Spine-chilling true stories of terrifying isolation in the Haunted Woods Volume 2 uncovered. The sun dipped low behind the pristine, cookie-cutter homes of Maplewood, shadows growing long as fear began to creep through the hearts of its residents. A single mother named Sarah, juggling the weight of late shifts at the local diner and a household that felt heavy with absence, faced the encroaching dread alone. Her husband had vanished without a trace, swallowed by the silence of the suburban landscape. Whispers of the haunted woods loomed in hushed conversations, seeping into the very fabric of her life, mixing with the mundane choreography of school runs and soccer practices. Those woods, said to be cursed, darkened the edge of town. They had claimed a child 3 decades ago, and on sultry summer nights, when the shadows stretched and the world dimmed, tales resurfaced. Just yesterday, while picking up Ella and Jake from soccer, Sarah felt the weight of the townsfolk's gazes, their fleeting whispers wrapping around her like a cold fog. "Keep them close," they murmured, eyes darting toward the tree-line. "The woods, they go deeper than you think." Then came the messages. Night after night, neighbors left chilling notes on her doorstep: "Don't let Ella and Jake go near the trees." Those simple words hammered against her sanity. She shook them off, telling herself they were just stories meant to scare children. But when kids in her neighborhood began talking about the whispers from the woods, Sarah couldn't suppress the knots tightening in her stomach. Last week, while she scrubbed dishes, Ella and Jake giggled loudly, their innocent laughter piercing the muffled dread. "We found a secret path, Mommy," Jake exclaimed, bouncing with excitement. "It leads into the woods." Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. She tried to smile, to feign joy, but every fiber in her screamed a warning. Then, those unsettling nights began. Jake would wake, whispering about friends nobody else could see. Soft voices seemed to pull at him from the dark. Shadows danced just outside their windows, the skeletal branches reaching like fingers. Sarah convinced herself it was all part of his imagination, tired mother's paranoia. But as the days turned into added dread, she realized that it was growing worse. On evenings where she worked later shifts, Ella would pinch the blanket tight around her shoulders, peering into the dark corners of their home, as if sensing something lurking beyond the light. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. One fateful evening, after a grueling shift, Sarah returned home only to find Jake missing. A sick surge of panic tore through her. His favorite bat lay abandoned in the yard, and her heart thundered in her chest as she sprinted toward the woods. "Jake!" she called, her voice cracking against the expanse of darkness. It was wrong. The world felt too quiet, too still. The trees swayed gently, almost taunting her. Each step she took echoed louder beneath the surface, her dread thick enough to slice. She squinted into the gloom, desperation clawing at her mind. Then, from the depths, a haunting whisper called out. It was soft but insistent, her child's name. "Jake." It curled around her, battering her senses. "Jake." But the only reply was the rustling of leaves, stirring memories of long-lost horrors. The invitation to find him felt sinister, as though the woods had been waiting for someone just like him. And as her calls grew frantic, the darkness clawed back, alive with secrets, plunging her into an abyss where no child should roam. The whisper twisted in the air, each sound a thread binding her to an unseen fate. Sarah's pulse quickened, pounding like a war drum resonating deep within her chest. If only I could reach him, she thought, willing her feet to move faster. She stepped deeper into the woods, heart racing, each crack of a twig echoing like a gunshot in the suffocating silence. The shadows thickened, nightmares weaved into the fabric of the trees. As she ventured further, the whispers multiplied, swirling around her. It was no longer just Jake's voice, there were others, faint and urgent, tugging at her psyche. Mommy help came through the chorus. The path narrowed, the air dampened, charged with an electric tension. The scent of earth and decay permeated her senses, chilling her down to the bone. Stop it, she muttered, forcing herself to focus. He's out there. I can find him. But with each step, the fear threatened to crush her resolve. Suddenly, movement caught her eye. A flash of white darted between the trees. Was it Jake? A fleeting glimpse of a small figure beckoned her forward, luring her deeper into the labyrinth of the woods. She called out again, her voice trembling, "Jake. Where are you?" But all that answered her was a low hum, resonating like a sinister melody, wrapping around her heart. With cautious steps, she approached the source of the flicker. It was barely visible, a small clearing with ghostly light spilling through the canopy. As she neared, she hesitated, a sensation of dread washing over her. What lay ahead? It's only the woods playing tricks, she thought, but somewhere deep down, she knew it was more than that. There, amidst the twisted roots, sat a weathered toy, a small stuffed bear, its button eye hanging by a thread, bleached by time. Her heart sank. With shaking hands, she picked it up, recognizing it from Jake's childhood. Panic now gripped her insides like a vice. Was his laughter lost here, among the gnarled branches and unknown horrors? Then, she heard it. A harsh crack. A branch snapped close by, but she saw nothing. The atmosphere shifted, like a breath held in anticipation. Sarah's instincts screamed at her to flee. Yet something held her, an invisible force compelling her to stay. "Jake!" she shouted, voice breaking. "Answer me. Please." The joy in her tone felt hollow, the hope flickering like a dying flame. She stepped back, glancing around. It felt like the woods were alive, the leaves whispering, laughter chilling her bones. Every instinct told her to run, but the silhouette of a small figure appeared just beyond the trees, arms outstretched. "Help," it murmured, a plea that sent icy fingers of dread spiraling down her spine. The face was hidden in the shadows, but she knew that voice. "No!" she screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. "I'm coming." But as she lunged forward, the figure dissolved into the forest, laughter echoing away into the murkiness. She was left alone, the bear clutched tightly to her chest, heart racing as panic threatened to drown her in the darkness. As shadows closed in, enveloping her, Sarah felt herself teetering on the edge between reality and nightmare. The whispers crescendoed, drowning out her thoughts, blurring the line between her frantic cries and the laughter of unseen children. "What are you?" she stammered, battling the images swirling in front of her. Then she heard a sharper voice, fresh in the cacophony, what sounded like a warning, clear and distinct. "Leave this place, they're hungry." The world spun, the tree lean warping behind her as the shadows surged forward, treachery hidden within the dark. What would she have to sacrifice to free her children? And in that moment of unfathomable terror, Sarah realized the woods were not just haunted, they were alive, and they had chosen her. As the ground eroded beneath her, she could only gasp for breath, fingers losing their grip on the bear, falling like a stone. The laughter echoed back, cruel and mocking. What was waiting in the darkness? Next time, would she find a way to escape, or would she become just another whisper among the trees? The whispers intensified, a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. Shadows danced closer, teasing her vision, as the heart of the forest pulsed with a rhythm of laughter and screams, demanding her attention. She stood there, frozen, teetering on the brink. The worn bear slipped from her grasp, sinking into the damp earth below like a relic of a forgotten time, lost forever. "Leave this place," the warning echoed in her mind, an anchor pulling her back, but the shadows swirled, cocooning her in their sinister embrace. It was almost as if the trees leaned closer, their bark twisted into mocking smiles. The ground felt alive beneath her feet, thrumming with a desperate hunger. Desperation surged through her. "I have to find him," she choked out, each word thick with fear. She took a step back, her instincts screaming to run, but what pierced her heart instead was the image of Jake's small face, the way it lit up with joy when he asked her to tell stories at bedtime. "Don't be a coward, Sarah," she whispered to herself, clenching her fists, recalling the promise she made to protect him. She spun around, forcing her legs to move despite the dread that wrapped around her like chains. The path ahead was obscured by darkness, but the laughter continued, each echo a taunting reminder of what she was risking. As she stumbled forward, she felt the cold fingers of mist grasping at her legs, pulling her down, trying to drag her into the underbrush where the shadows thrived. "Jake!" She called out again, voice trembling. No answer. Just her own breath, heavy and thick, cycling in a rhythm that mirrored the racing of her heart. She could feel it, something watching her. Eyes lurking just beyond the thicket, probing, waiting for her to falter. Past the veil of trees, twisted branches reached out like skeletal fingers, beckoning her to come closer. "Please, let me find him," she pleaded, her voice cracking, lost in the suffocating atmosphere. Suddenly, the shadows parted just ahead, revealing a narrow trail that wound deeper into the forest. A sliver of pale light flickered at the end, promising hope or more despair. With no time to debate, she lunged toward it, adrenaline surging. But as she ran, the ground shifted beneath her. Roots twisted and coiled around her feet, gripping tighter with every step, as if the forest itself were a living entity desperate to hold her back. Her breath quickened, and she fought to break free, but it was pointless. "Help!" she gasped, panic breaking through. The laughter morphed into high-pitched shrieks, drowning out her pleas. It was a sound of pure malice, echoing off the trees, taunting her for her every desperate move. "No!" she shrieked, wrenching her foot free just in time to avoid being pulled into the suffocating tangle of roots. She ran without thinking, diving toward the flickering light. It danced like a star amid the oppressive darkness, a beacon in her chaotic world of shadows. As she neared the source, she stumbled into a clearing that felt impossibly bright, beating back the surrounding gloom. In the center sat a smooth stone, glowing faintly. Cautiously, still trembling, she approached, her gut twisting with a sense of foreboding. The surface of the stone reflected her panic-stricken face, but there, etched into the surface, was a message: sacrifice to the hungry. A chill shot through her, stealing the breath from her lungs. She swayed, a heartbeat away from losing her resolve. They wanted her, but who were they? Before she could ponder further, the shadows lunged forward. They were hungry indeed, hungry for more than her fear. And if she had to give something up to find Jake, how could she choose between her son and herself? Would the price be her own life? As she stood frozen, heart pounding, the shadows circled closer, ever hungry. She could feel their breath against her skin, cold and unsettling. What would she be willing to sacrifice to save Jake? The sinister laughter coiled around her like a serpent, whispering dreadful answers. What would she choose, a son lost or a mother gone? The shadows hissed, hungry to claim their prize. Sarah's heart thundered against her ribcage, a frantic drumbeat urging her to flee. Every instinct screamed at her, yet she felt pinned, unable to move as the dark fingers of the forest tightened their grip. The laughter swelled and shot through her bones, wrapping her in waves of terror. She darted her eyes around, desperate for any escape, but the flickering light behind her seemed to dim, its warmth dimming into a distant memory. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking. The stone beckoned her, its surface still vibrating with the ominous message: sacrifice to the hungry. A low rumble emanated from the tree-line, a guttural growl that sent a jolt down her spine. The shadows shifted restlessly, closing in tighter, their movement strangely fluid, like water writhing in the dark. How long until they reached out and dragged her down into their abyss? "Jake!" she shouted again, her voice teetering on the edge of despair. And then, through the chaos, a sound pierced her heart, an echo of laughter. Bright and innocent, it wove through the terror, pulling at her soul. "Mommy!" it called, and there it was, the child's voice she'd risk everything for. The shadows shrieked with rage, spitting malice as they recoiled from the sweetness of his laughter. Fueled by the desperate hope of finding Jake, Sarah felt a surge of strength. She needed to act, but what could she offer? The stone glowed brighter, urging her thoughts to shift. "Take me instead," she rasped, voice trembling that in that moment, everything froze. Silence blanketed the clearing, the shadows paused, uncertain. The forest seemed to inhale deeply, waiting for her to lay her life upon the altar. But her resolve wavered. How could she decide? "Jake!" she cried, a primal scream that resonated through the dark. "I'll find you." And just like that, the pulse of the forest quickened. Shadows tightened around her, swirling like a tempest. The laughter turned into a cacophony, morphing into agonized wails as they frantically fought against the power of her love. In one swift motion, she lunged away from the stone. But instead of freedom, she felt a cold grasp pulling her back, vines wrapping around her waist. The earth heaved beneath her. There was another sound now, a chorus of voices whispering promises deep within the forest. "Come, join us." With trembling hands, she clawed at the roots constricting her. "No!" she shouted, horror weaving its way through her veins. In the blink of an eye, the shadows shifted, revealing a path she hadn't noticed before. A flicker of red light sparked from the darkness, beckoning her with a siren call. "Mommy, I'm scared." Jake's voice echoed again, drowning out the sinister whispers. It was close now. She could hear him, feel him. Gritting her teeth against the fear battering her, she took a hesitant step toward the beckoning glow. The laughter morphed into frantic howls, enraged and desperate now. As she plowed forward, the forest seemed to warp around her. Shadows lunged, mouths gaping wide, but something was changing. They were losing their grip. The deeper she went, the more the mist parted. And then, she stood before it, a tiny clearing, illuminated by the blinding red light. In its center hovered a small orb, pulsating as if alive. Was it hope, or a trick? Dread pooled in her stomach. Before she could reason, she advanced, the cries of the shadows a distant thrum now. "Jake!" But as she reached for the light, it faltered and dimmed, revealing a dark figure standing beside it. A shadow shaped like a man, grinning ever so wide, twisting with malice. "Welcome," it hissed, voice like ice. The memory slipped from her grasp. Jake's laughter faded, a distant echo swallowed by the shadows once more. Fear clutched her, heart racing. Every instinct screeched to turn away, and yet, staying meant agony. What waited for her in that red light? And would she ever find her son again? The shadows pulsed, their hunger insatiable, growing ever closer. The choice hung heavy in the air, light or dark. Life or sacrifice. Time raced forward, and the chilling question loomed, which would she choose? A chill crept over Sarah as the shadowy figure leaned closer. Its grin widened, revealing jagged teeth glistening like shards of glass. "You've wandered far, haven't you?" The voice dripped with a sinister sweetness that made her skin crawl, heart pounding. She stepped back, but the shadows surged forward, their tendrils reaching out like grasping hands. Panic ignited in her chest. She had to think. "Jake!" she screamed, each syllable a plea to whatever forces listened in this grotesque landscape. The shadow responded with a cruel laugh, a sound that twisted like a knife. "Ah yes, little Jake." It swirled around her, dark magic curling the air like smoke. "He's waiting, eager for your arrival." "No. You don't have him." Sarah's voice trembled, but the certainty that her son was nearby washed over her, replacing despair with a surge of defiance. She had come too far to falter now, too close. The red glow flickered again, seductive and warm. She staggered toward it, fueled by determination, but the shadow stepped in her path, blocking her way. "If you want him, you must first understand the price." The air thickened as the shadow's form shifted, limbs stretching and contorting. It manifested into a silhouette reminiscent of her, an unsettling reflection caught in a dark mirror. Would you sacrifice yourself for him? Or are you just another lost soul, yearning to be saved? A wave of revulsion swept over her. Stop. You can't trick me. But doubt clawed at her heart. Could she lose herself in this abyss? Would doing so guarantee her son's safety? Join your son or perish alone, the shadow hissed, voice echoing like a haunting farewell. Sarah felt her resolve fading. The orb pulsed brighter, a beacon of hope laced with dread. Jake's laughter wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, but the forest's whispers pressed urgently, urging surrender. She fought against the encroaching dark, ripping her gaze from the shadow. Focus. She took another step toward the orb. She could sense it pulling, could feel the warmth radiating off it, but all the while, the shadows writhed, feral and frantic. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, not from the shadows, but from deeper within the forest, a blend of joy and terror. "Mommy, please." Jake's voice sounded closer, and Sarah felt a desperate surge of adrenaline. If she didn't act now, she might lose her son forever. Consumed by the darkness, disregarding the figure, she lunged forward, reaching for the red glow. But just as her fingers brushed the surface, it flickered violently and extinguished. The glade plunged into silence, the shadows recoiling with a deep, wretched groan. No. Sarah's scream tore through the air, raw with despair. Then, a soft whimper broke the silence, piercing through her panic. "Mommy, Jake." The shadows stirred, the sinister figure now more agitated than ever. "You've made your choice, but choices come with consequences." It lunged at her, the darkness moving like a living creature, snapping at her heels. Before she could brace herself, something cold coiled around her ankle. Vines, thick and twisted, dragged her back, squeezing tighter like a noose. The sound of cracking branches echoed in the surrounding woods as she fought against the relentless grip. As the shadows drew her closer to their maw, a sudden flame ignited in the depths of the forest, a burst of bright, searing light that shot forth like a beacon against the blackness. It cut through the mist, illuminating a path leading deeper in, away from the grasping tendrils. And God, was it beautiful? The shadow recoiled in fury, the tendrils loosening their hold, but just for a heartbeat. "You can't escape the truth, Sarah." It rasped, fury coating every syllable. "The darkness is inside you. You'll never be free." With a primal scream, Sarah yanked her leg free from the vine's grasp and sprinted toward the light. The laughter faded but left an imprint of desperation, a reminder the shadows were not done with her yet. "Jake! I'm coming!" The forest shook with dissent, voices clamoring and shadows writhing. She dove into the light, but as she crossed the threshold, the world spiraled. "Where am I?" She landed in a small clearing, heart racing, a shroud of silence following her. Was it a sanctuary or merely a cruel illusion? Ahead loomed an ancient tree, gnarled and twisted, its roots weaving like serpents. Pieces of her heart whispered back, fragments of Jake's laughter lingering just out of reach. Darkness pressed upon her, light dimming as shadows danced along the edges of her vision. Would she find Jake? Or was this only the beginning of her torment? The wind howled, carrying the echo of what she feared most. "You'll never leave." Desperation clawed at her throat. The path behind her closed once more, the shadows curling with malicious intent. She stood, trembling, on the brink of the unknown, with only one question echoing through her mind: what will she sacrifice to bring her son home? The air grew colder still, dense with the scent of damp earth and decay. Sarah looked around, her breath hitching in her throat as she took in her surroundings. The eerie stillness of the clearing felt heavy, each heartbeat pulsing louder than ever against the silence that enveloped her. "Jake!" Her voice broke through the quiet, but was met only by the rustle of leaves overhead, whispering secrets she could barely understand. She couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were lurking, watching. Even in this brief moment of sanctuary, dread curled around her like fog, blurring her thoughts. The ancient tree loomed before her, its twisted branches clawing at the sky, an unsettling figure against the dimming light. Wide cracks snaked through its bark, revealing something dark and pulsing within. Was this tree a guardian or jailer? There was no time to ponder as she felt Jake's presence inching closer, like a candle flickering in the dark. "Mommy!" This time, his call pierced the air sharper, a cry mingled with fear that sent her sprinting forward. She didn't want to think about what kind of horrors lurked in the shadows. She just needed to reach him. As Sarah reached the base of the tree, she noticed the roots snaking through the ground, pulsing rhythmically, almost alive. They seemed to beckon her, inviting her deeper into the earth, into darkness. She took a step closer, her hand brushing against the coarse bark, feeling a tremor race through her. A cold surge of energy coursed through her, igniting the fear that had been simmering since she entered the woods. But then, at the edge of her awareness, movement. A fluttering at the base of the tree caught her eye. She knelt and peered closer. It was a small object, gleaming strangely in the dim light. She reached for it, feeling the chill in the air deepen. Her fingers grasped a locket, the metal cool against her skin. Fumbling, she opened it. A picture of Jake stared back at her, his innocent eyes wide with confusion. Beneath it was another photograph, a woman. She looked like Sarah. The resemblance was uncanny, as if they were mirrored souls caught in a web of fate. The shadows stirred around her, their whispers growing louder, an ominous chant. "What have you done?" She jerked back, holding the locket to her chest. "No. I want to let you take him." Her voice quivered, resolute yet fragile. Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows bordering the clearing. Tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to consume the light around it. It lifted a long finger, pointing directly at Sarah. The air crackled with an electric tension, a grim warning. "You should not have come here. You have awakened what was meant to sleep." It spoke in a voice that echoed with the sound of breaking glass. "Sacrifice is the only way. Join us or suffer the fate of the lost. Leave us alone." Sarah screamed, clutching the locket as if it were a shield. The moment felt breathless, charged with despair and a flicker of hope she wasn't ready to let go of. Then, the shadows surged, coiling around her legs, dragging her towards the tree. The intricate roots twisted tighter, entwining her ankles, feral and merciless. Panic flooded through her veins. The whispers became a cacophony, a sinister symphony of distorted voices filling her mind. "Help us, save us," they taunted, but deep down, she recognized their true intentions. The forest wanted to keep her, to claim her as one of its own. With every ounce of strength, she fought against the pull, screaming Jake's name, the echo of his laugh intertwining with her cries. Would the bond of mother and son be strong enough to defy whatever malevolent force resided here? "Skin and soul to save your boy," the shadow figure declared, its grin widening unnaturally, ripping free from the entangling roots. Sarah prepared to delve deeper into the heart of the forest, determined to rescue Jake before it was too late. She sprinted toward the path of light that flickered ahead, the oppressive darkness clawing at her heels. But as she raced through the clearing, a deep rumble shook the earth. The trees shaking almost in response to her defiance. "You want to escape." The shadows shrieked, their fury reverberating. With one last desperate glance over her shoulder, she plunged into the realms of the unknown, every heartbeat echoing the dawning realization she wasn't just fighting for Jake. She was battling against the darkness within herself, and she couldn't ignore the cost. What sacrifice would she make to pull her son from the clutches of this forest? Would she even recognize the woman she would become when it was over? As she plunged deeper into the fading light, shadows loomed, whispering, waiting for her to make her final choice. The forest felt alive, a pulsating entity that throbbed with a hunger Sarah could sense in her very bones. Each rustle of leaves sent shivers racing along her spine, the whispers now a constant hum that swirled chaotically around her. "Keep running," they seemed to say. "There's no safety here." She pushed through the underbrush, branches snagging at her clothes like frantic hands trying to pull her back, but she didn't stop. With every ragged breath, she imagined Jake ahead, just out of reach, his laughter echoing in her mind, urging her forward. The light flickering further in the distance felt like a promise of hope, of escape, but as she pressed on, the ground began to waver beneath her feet. The shadows deepened, swirling around her in a dance of torment. Sarah could hear her heartbeat booming, every sound it felt as though the forest was amplifying her fear, feasting on her dread. Suddenly, the path shifted, no longer a trail but a sinking labyrinth of roots and dark soil, twisting beneath her shoes. Another scream for Jake surged through her, but her voice felt crushed under the weight of despair. The shadows held her captive, laughing now, mocking her as they closed in. "You will become one of us." The image of her son wrenched at her heart. Somehow, she had to reach him, but the forest was changing her, warping her resolve into something darker. Desperation clawed at her throat. "I will save him," she insisted, though she felt the truth slipping through her fingers like dirt. As if in response, the shadows shifted, revealing twisted faces within their grasp. They were familiar yet unrecognizable fragments of her past, distorted reflections of her own fears and regrets. Sarah stumbled back, gasping. "No, not them, not like this." Every face whispered her name, each syllable a bitter echo of her failures. "You abandoned us, you forgot us, you should have been there." Sobs choked her chest, and she stumbled into the depths of herself, a memory surfacing like a wretched ghost. Her mother's voice rang clear in her mind, the warnings, the tales of sacrifice, of haunting forests that demanded a toll. Through her tears, she spotted a clearing ahead. It looked almost peaceful, but an eerie chill gnawed at her instincts. Was this the end of her torment, or merely another trap? She hesitated, but the forest held its breath, waiting for her to make her choice. "Jake!" she called out, her voice cracking. And then she saw him caught in the web of light that filtered through the trees, his tiny figure standing, transfixed. But he was not alone. A figure loomed beside him, its back turned. A feeling of dread twisted her stomach. "Jake! Let him go!" she screamed, her voice raw. The shadowy shape turned slowly, revealing the hollow-eyed specter that had confronted her earlier. "Mother, save him!" It was her, both her and not her at all. Shadows shifted around the creature, writhing like snakes eager to entangle her son. Panic surged through her veins. "I'm here, Jake!" Plunging forward, she felt the world twist again, the clearing blurring into darkness, but just as the specter reached toward her son, a voice, deep and resonating, filled the clearing. "To save him, you must understand the truth." "What truth?" Sarah gasped, the weight of the moment crushing her resolve. Sacrifice is the only way. Breathless and trembling, Sarah felt time dilate. The choice loomed before her like the gnarled branches of the tree, splitting her past from her future. What was she willing to sacrifice to save Jake? Terror coursed through her, the end was nigh, rippling just beyond her grasp. As darkness pressed in from all sides, she had to decide would she dare to embrace the shadows, or fight against them once and for all. The forest held its breath, waiting for her answer. A silence fell, thick and suffocating. Sarah's heart raced as her mind spun with thoughts of Jake. The specter loomed, its hollow eyes boring into her. "What does it mean?" she whispered, voice trembling, fear curling around her words. "Your love is both the key and the barrier," the dark voice rumbled, vibrating through the very ground beneath her. "To save him, you must confront what you refuse to see." Shadows caressed her skin, cold and clammy, as the whispers of the forest grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. Each leaf rustled with the secrets of a million souls lost, the stolen breaths of those who had attempted to navigate the darkness. "I'll do anything," she cried, desperation reaching a fever pitch. "Just let him go." In that moment of frantic resolve, images began to swim before her eyes, memories shattering like glass, lost moments with Jake, laughter erased by the weight of her own regrets. Her mother's face manifested in front of her, eyes full of sorrow. "You can't outrun your choices," echoed her voice, layered with pain. "You must face them." "Leave me," she pleaded, recoiling from the memory. "I can't do this." "Face her," the specter urged, its voice chillingly calm. "Face your failures." The ground trembled beneath her, roots creeping up her legs, clawing for her soul. The light that had seemed so promising now flickered uncertainly, tracing shadows that were hungry, eager to consume. "Jake, please. You have to come to me," she begged, a raw edge slicing through her panic. He turned back, confusion clouding his little features. "Mommy?" The pit of terror in her stomach widened. "Stay where you are." But as she tried to grasp for him, it felt as though the earth itself conspired against her. With each step forward, the landscape shifted, the trees twisted, closing in tighter, obscuring the light. Jake's small voice faltered, swallowed in the shadows. "Mom. I don't want to stay here." "Then don't." Sarah screamed, veins filled with adrenaline and despair. She felt the darkness pull, the grasp of the forest tightening like a noose. "Run." A jolt of energy surged through her, and she took a step back, resolute. She wouldn't let the shadows claim her or Jake. "I can't do this alone." She yelled into the darkness, her voice fierce against the growing shadows. The specter stilled for a moment, as if evaluating her resolve. "The love you hold dear can save you both, but it demands a price." "What price?" she whispered, trembling, waiting for the dread answer. "Nothing less than your deepest fear," it replied, the shadows swirling faster now, an angry storm. The world tilted around her, fear consuming her heart. Could she bear that beloved weight? The memories surged again, the hurt, the bitterness. "But if I release my fears, then you shall have strength," the words resonated, wrapped in both promise and warning. Bold and desperate, she took another step, the whispers swirling violently around her mind. "To save Jake, I will face it." The shadows screamed in fury, wanting to lash out, to reclaim their prey. "No." They howled, twisting her words, while the specter's face morphed into grotesque manifestations of all she'd lost. Trembling, she stepped forward, hand outstretched toward Jake, the darkness closing in like hungry wolves ready to attack. Her heart pounded. She had to hold on. Suddenly, the earth shook violently. The shadows shrieked, the clearing darkening further as if it could swallow her whole. "Do you truly want to save him?" The specter roared, its voice now a chorus of resentful whispers. "Or will you let the darkness consume you both?" As the darkness surged, her breath caught. With that, the entire forest fell silent, holding its breath. The choice was clear, yet impossibly heavy. Would she break the chains of her fear, or allow the shadows to drag them both into oblivion? The clarity of her choice trembled in the air, the very atmosphere waiting in keen anticipation. The air pulsed with a cold intensity, electricity crackling around Sarah as she stood at the precipice of her fear. Each heartbeat seemed to echo in the stillness, louder, louder still, drowning out reason. Shadows shifted violently, clawing the edges of her perception, threatening to collapse into her mind. "Face it," the specter whispered, its voice weaving through the air like smoke. "Face what you fear most." The grotesque images coalesced, swirling into a singular nightmare. The day her mother had vanished. Just a breath of wind and she disappeared like smoke, leaving Sarah alone and abandoned. It had been her fault. How much had she blamed herself over the years? How much had she hidden from the truth? "Mom." She choked, each syllable stabbing at her. The forest seemed to grow warmer, the shadows retreating a fraction, as if curious. "I shouldn't have. I didn't mean to." "Your love binds you to the past," the specter said, voice not unkind but gravelly, like dry leaves crunching underfoot. The image of her mother shimmered before her, an echo clad in sorrow. "You've buried it. But the darkness knows." Dread pooled in Sarah's stomach. She wouldn't bury it anymore. Not now. Jake was relying on her. "Jake!" She screamed, heart racing with panic, the name tearing through the shadows. "I'm coming." Yet the more she shouted, the further Jake seemed to slip away, the edges of her sanity frame. The trees shuddered, stretching upward with gnarled limbs, twisted faces etched in shadow. They whispered secrets meant for her ears alone. "Why did you leave him?" a voice hissed. You're not worthy of his love. Stop. She pleaded, her voice cracking like a dry branch underfoot. Shaking, Sarah clenched her fists, pushing against the tide of despair. She could see Jake now, tiny hands clutching at the roots, eyes wide and terrified. He needed her. Footfalls echoed softly behind her. She turned, eyes wide, dread gripping her throat. But nothing was there, only darkness festering in the corner of her vision. Face it, Sarah. The spectre bellowed. Your fear of abandonment, your guilt. Let the shadows be your strength. Her vision blurred, heart racing as fragments of her past swept over her. The laughter in a darkened room. The cries for help silenced by her choices. The face of her mother, once vibrant, now a ghost against her memory. She took a shaky breath, drawing strength from the pain. I want to let you take him. I want to be afraid. In that moment, she felt something shift, a slow unfolding, as if the forest itself recognized her defiance. The shadows trembled, hesitated, then lunged violently forward. Foolish girl. They screeched, forming into tendrils, seeking to ensnare her in a choking embrace. Sarah could feel the weight of their darkness trying to bury her where she stood. I see you. She shouted, grounding herself. I see you. You don't control me. As she screamed, a sudden bolt of warmth ignited within her, an illumination burning fiercely in the depths of her being. It radiated outward, a shield against the encroaching darkness, but the shadows hissed, agitated, swirling with rage. You can't escape. You belong to the dark. Mommy. Jake cried again, his small voice cracking as his image flickered, barely holding against the relentless pull. The dread renewed in her chest. Sarah's terror turned into a spark, transforming her fear into raw power. I will face you. She roared, the ground shaking beneath her feet as she plunged forward. Another step, another scream. The shadows recoiled, momentum shifting as her heart drummed steadily in her chest. But as she neared Jake, she felt something cold grip her ankle, a shadowy tendril pulling her back from her son. No. She gasped, panic erupting anew. With one last effort, she lunged forward, teeth gritted, body straining against the tightening grip. Then, the world tilted. A new sound emerged, deep and resonant as if the very forest moaned. The shadows stilled, for just a heartbeat. Was it a sign of retreat, or did it signal something worse? Sarah, the spectre murmured, what will you sacrifice? The ground trembled beneath her again, and she gasped, fear twisting into knots in her stomach. The shadows surged forward again, brimming with a new, terrifying energy. Everything hung in a delicate balance, her heart hammering, the thin thread of hope nearly frayed. What was she willing to give? And what price would come next? The air hung thick, heavy with tension as Sarah's heartbeat drummed loudly in her ears. She could see Jake, small and frightened, as the shadows loomed ever closer, threatening to consume him whole. Panic surged through her veins, and desperation clawed at her chest. I want to let you take him. She screamed, her voice breaking, ringing with fierce determination that echoed through the suffocating woods. The shadows hesitated, just for a moment. The sight of her resolve caused them to shift uneasily, as if unsure of their next move. The spectre, now fully formed before her, observed with an eerie calm, the very embodiment of her fears. You must confront what you are willing to sacrifice, it whispered, voice heavy with the weight of darkness that swirled around them. Anything. She shouted, urgency lacing her voice. I would give anything to save him. Targeting the shadows with her gaze, she realized then that they were feeding on her fear, thriving in turmoil. The darkness within her suddenly felt different, like a riddle she needed to solve. You want my fear? Take it. She declared boldly, clenching her fists tightly. The forest trembled at her declaration, the ground vibrating with a low hum that seemed to recognize her decision. The shadows surged forward, grasping for her, but she stepped closer to Jake, urging him to hold on. I am not afraid of you. Sarah's voice rang out defiantly, each word a bolt of power crashing through the thrumming darkness. Then, she felt it. An unyielding warmth spreading within her, blossoming like sunlight breaking through layers of clouds. Hope surged, radiating outward as she pressed through the shadows, charging forward. They writhed and shrieked, their grip faltering beneath the weight of her light. No. The specter screamed, its form flickering, wavering against her determination. You cannot win. I will. She vowed. Eyes locked onto Jake, he looked up at her, hope dawning amidst fear. Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming. Her heart raced, fueled by tears and an unwavering promise. The shadows recoiled, anger radiating from them, a dark storm trying desperately to reclaim its lost prey. With a final burst of energy, Sarah lunged forward. She reached for Jake, her fingers grasping his small hand as she pulled him tightly to her. The very essence of love pulsed like a beacon, illuminating the darkness that surrounded them. She thought of all the love that held them together, all the laughter they would have shared, all the moments they could still create. That instant, the shadows howled in a wave of fury, but they couldn't touch them, not now, not with love blazing like a shield around them. The ground throbbed beneath them, the forest trembling in awe of the raw emotions that surged forth. Sacrifice is the price you must pay, the specter hissed one last time, its voice curling around her mind, desperate to reclaim what it had lost. But Sarah held on tighter to Jake, allowing the light of hope to drown out that darkness. No. She cried defiantly, her heart flooding with clarity. I choose love. With those words, the shadows boiled and twisted, a tempest of fury spiraling out into nothingness. The entire forest quaked with power as they erupted into a storm of black mist, caught between fury and fear. Mommy. Jake's voice pierced through the chaos, now clear and unwavering. The shadows flickered wildly, battling against her resolve, but they began to unravel, dissolving into the very earth they had emerged from. The whispers turned to cries of retreat, fading under the vibrant energy enveloping them. Together. She urged, gripping Jake's hand tighter as they rushed toward the light that beckoned just beyond the darkness. As they moved, light flooded the glade, illuminating the gnarled roots of the ancient tree, dispelling the shadows until nothing remained but peaceful flickering sunbeams. The air felt fresh, the worries of the forest lifting, replaced with a gentle breeze carrying the sounds of nature, a symphony of freedom that cradled them. They stumbled into the clearing, breathless, and fell to their knees. Relief flowed through Sarah, tears of joy mingling with disbelief. They were free. The forest had not claimed them, they had reclaimed their lives, their love, each other. I was so scared, Mommy, Jake whispered, his little face streaked with dirt yet glowing bright under the warm sun. I know, sweet boy, Sarah replied, relief washing over her. She pulled him into an embrace, feeling his heartbeat against hers, a reminder that love was stronger than any darkness that lurked. The edges of the forest shimmered under the sunlight, a haunting memory now fading in the distance. They faced unimaginable terror but emerged together, battered yet unbroken, hand in hand. They walked away from what had tried to consume them, stepping into the warmth of a new beginning. Each step forward felt lighter, the burdens of fear and loss lifting with every moment. They were free. They were home. As you wrap up this emotional journey, now is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to hit that subscribe button. You need to subscribe now to not miss exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread the love, and we want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this heart-pounding conclusion. Finally, don't be selfish, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful ending. Let us build our community together. Your support means everything.